So I guess Grunts 2 just isn't happening. By now we've all seen that Warner Brothers saw the huge success of Marvel Rivals and decided the best course of action would be to shut down the studio that made Gotham City Imposters. And at first you might think, oh, Warner Brothers and all those kooky capitalists, all they want is one game that they can just milk forever instead of putting out solid AAA games. But no, Hogwarts Legacy got a sequel. So what's going on? I thought Warner was just stuck on the live or die train when I saw the news, but then I saw that Hogwarts Legacy is greenlit to get a sequel, so why this? What's going on? A studio that is responsible for what many consider to be the greatest game mechanic of all time, and you just throw that away? According to VG Insight, Shadow of Mordor, just the first one, not both, just the first one, was responsible for 116.8 million bazangos dollars. But that stupid little Harry Potter game, that's fine. There's no way it made as much money as... I hate Harry Potter fans. I have been disillusioned with the rigmarole of AAA. I was filtering through the new Pokemon Direct with my sick little feelers you guys don't know about when that new Legends game popped up. Visually, it's the best thing to come out of Game Freak in a very long time. The combat looks cool, the traversal looks cool, and I like the starters. I don't know what you guys are going on about. Can't go wrong with Totodile. Tepig is the Unova starter. I always pick Chikorita. Oh, what's wrong, Pokemon fans? Not enough furry porn of this one? If Meganium stood on 2 feet and had birthing hips, then Chikorita would be a perfectly fine pick, right? Hang on, I'm getting into a different video. Let me back up. The game looked great, and by all measures, I should be super excited, but I realized, like, man, I just kind of don't care. There's nothing wrong with the trailer. It looks like a really cool game. I should care. As a Pokemon fan, I should be super excited, but I kinda just don't. I really enjoyed Ultra Sun, but after they stopped including the national decks, I fell off it for a bit. Until the Sinnoh remakes came out. Now Sinnoh, that's my gen, right? That was around my age range when I was coming up. Turtwig brings me back to times when I was but a bucking young lad. And yeah, I saw all the terrible trailers, and I heard everyone's awful reactions, and everyone was like, oh, this is gonna be a bad game, but I had hope that nostalgia and Game Freak would come together to make the dream make. Instead, we got Shining Pearl. And that's when it happened, officer. Watching that direct, I realized I just wasn't a Pokemon person anymore. In fact, I thought about the Legends game a little too much, and I started to view it in a negative light. Pokemon is getting ready to sue Palworld. And now we get a trailer for it, like it's just, like we knew it was coming. We knew this game was gonna get announced, another Legends game, and like we knew we were gonna see more of it. But like, they're about to sue the competition. This looks awful. And now wait a minute, let's be fair. The first Legends game came out before Palworld. And yeah, that's true. When you lay out the full timeline, Palworld comes out in 2024, Legends Arceus comes out in 2022, and Pokemon Generations, a fan game that involves slide open world and free-form Pokemon combat, came out in 2010. Let's not beat up on Pokemon too much, because a good bit of the industry has this issue. Like Sonic. This won't get me in trouble at all. I always thought a character built on fast, fluid movement should have a backlog of games that push how we use traversal, that make us reassess speed. Instead, Sonic's history is one of formulas and traditions. Meanwhile, Sonic fans grew up and decided to make video games. The technology has become accessible to the point that if these studios don't want to make the games we want, they just don't get to be the ones to sell them. Those games are still gonna get made. I'm sorry, I forgot this key detail. Unless you copyright a key mechanic to the game, in which case an indie studio can't make a spiritual successor and evolve every concept made in your original game and move the series forward and give fans a game to play. That can't happen now. Can it, Warner? I'm sorry. That was a lot. I'm sorry. So yes, as you've heard every knuckle-dragging drama tuber say, Warner has patented the Nemesis system. So Shadow of War fans, learn Conker's hockey or C#, because we got an 11-year training arc now. But I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the Nemesis system rotting in Shang Tsung's flesh pits isn't the only issue here. It's also worth mentioning that even if there were no legal hang-ups, it would still be pretty difficult beyond, the normal, oh, it's hard to make a video game stuff. There are very few things that still necessitate AAA studios in this industry. I think sooner or later, the industry has to become AA reliant or single A. I don't actually know what the A's mean. But unfortunately, the Nemesis system, it was one of those mechanics that justified AAA studios. Part of the Nemesis system is randomly generating enemies. There's a lot of things that get poured into that system. Things that before you even start working on that, you just have to make assets for it to pull on, to put the new characters together so that you can write your own story. And that just takes money and time. So even when the day comes that we do have access to that mechanic, I'm worried that an indie studio isn't gonna have the resources to tackle it. It's gonna take a AAA company. Really? The ideal situation would have been if we could have just kept Monolith. They were the ones that made the system. I'm sure they still had staff that worked on Mordor and War, so they had the experience with that kind of game. And maybe Wonder Woman was their idea. I feel like maybe they're like, we want to make another Nemesis system game. And then a Warner Brothers exec came in and said, okay, but do it with Wonder Woman. And I'm like, what? How does this work? How does this? I've mentioned in previous videos that I had my doubts about a Wonder Woman game that uses the Nemesis system. You're a nasty little guy in Mordor and Shadow of War, and you're gutting people and you're threatening people with violence and you're conquering people's minds and making them into your slaves. You just gotta say it. Wonder Woman's gonna have slaves? That doesn't make any sense. I worked out some kind of logic in my other video on how they might do it, and I still think that was probably the way they were gonna go. But at the end of the day, you just need a violent sociopath as the main character if you're gonna have a Nemesis system, I think. So yeah, Monolith had the staff, they had the experience, and they had that sweet, sweet Scooby-Doo money. This video's pointless, all the other videos are pointless. When the What Happened video about this Wonder Woman game comes out, then we'll know. Then we'll know what's actually going on and who's at fault. But right now, all we can do is sit around and speculate about how awful Warner Brothers is. Like, how terrible were they? How at fault were they? So, yeah, that's it. I'm sad. Yeah, Shadow of War fans, I guess I'll just see you in 2036.